Hello and welcome back to the Q&A. Now, it's been quite a while since I've done one of these, so I'm sort of out of relevant questions. So if you do have any, be it lore or gameplay or really anything, just leave it down in the comments for this video and I'll be sure to get to it at some point in the future. Now, just before I get properly into today's video, which don't worry, does have some pretty cool questions, I just want to talk a little bit about the channel's schedule. I did an update video last Sunday, I believe, and not everyone got to see that, so I just want to reiterate here, I've taken the decision to move the channel to 5 days of videos a week, and the overall goal of that is just, you know, a little bit less pressure and then more time to work in each video so that they're better. Plus, you know, there's not a crazy amount to talk about at the minute, so that means that I've got to make more kind of original content that takes more effort, and that's really what's been going on. And I've got to say, after the first week, this experiment has paid off very well. I'm far more happy and relaxed than I hope that it will sort of come out in the content that I make. But anyway, with all of that said, and with everyone sort of on the same page and updated, it's time to talk about the Q&A things. So first of all, we've got a question from Quitter, who essentially just asked, is WoW's combat getting old? And I think that is a very, very good question. It's funny, you know, as time has went on, multiple MMOs have really come and gone, and each one of them has, well, at least many of them have tried to say, oh, we've got the new shiny, exciting, amazing combat, you know, flock to us. And what's lasted the test of time? It's actually been World of Warcraft's combat. Now, I know that, of course, there are more reasons why World of Warcraft has lasted the test of time in comparison to those other MMOs, but I think that there are some great advantages to World of Warcraft's combat. Now, first of all, it's hotkey-based combat. Personally, I like that. I like numbers, I like rotations, I like priority systems, I like the way things work with, you know, cooldowns and stats and all that stuff. That's just what I've always liked when it comes to combat in a game. So World of Warcraft does do that. But then again, nearly all of these other MMOs do, so why does WoW's just work better, for me anyway? Honestly, I think it's because of flow. I think the way that the classes are designed in World of Warcraft really emphasizes a great flow. I suppose you just mentally kind of get into it, really. And also, I just think that, like, the overall balance between mechanical complexity of the class that you're playing and then mechanical complexity of the encounter, this is specifically for raiding, is balanced such that it's in a very happy medium. You've still got a class with a lot of meat to it that generally needs to be played well, and there's, you know, a good bit of top end so that the really skilled players can shine. But at the same time, it's not so overly complex that any decently challenging boss mechanics are just absurd. You know, for an example, if you had to manage 30 keybinds and you had to use all of them all the time, then a boss, even a decently simple World of Warcraft boss, would be much harder, and I think for a very annoying reason, because of course your brain can only reasonably be expected to pay attention to so much at once. So essentially, I think one of their best things, which is a mixture between hotkey combat, their resource systems, procs as well, which I'll cover in a second, and the encounter design, is that the flow is extremely it's got the right balance. Now, I mentioned procs. I don't know how much of a thing procs are in other MMOs. I don't remember them that much from playing my Bounty Hunter in Star Wars The Old Republic. But what I will say about procs is that they are used well by Blizzard generally, in my opinion. They feel like an extra little bonus that appears halfway through your rotation. It forces you to make a decision. You know, you have to react to it, and I think that's really good for just adding that little bit of spice into your rotation to mean that it's not a complete snooze fest. And I think that is definitely very important. There are some classes like, say, the Retribution Paladin, where you just have procs going everywhere, you're always sort of reacting to your class, and I think that for some people that can be really fun. And of course they've got so many classes that you can choose a class which sort of suits you in terms of the amount of procs and style of the rotation. So really, I suppose overall, it's your standard hotkey combat, but it's been refined over a long time with classes that have got a good feel of, I think, identity, and it just works. So really, to answer that question, in my opinion, as a World of Warcraft player, no, the combat is not old. I like it as it is. Though what I would say is that for some people, the idea of hotkey combat is definitely antiquated. As times went on, you know, games have tried to be a bit more action-oriented. You know, we've went from, say, Mass Effect 1, which was very heavy RPG-ish in its roots, to Mass Effect 3, which was essentially a third-person shooter with very light RPG mechanics. That's happened with many different genres, and one upshot of that is that I think for a lot of people, yeah, World of Warcraft's combat does feel old, and it is one of the reasons why they wouldn't play the game, especially for people who don't understand what the top end of the game is like at level 100. You know, when you just, say, start off a new character, and for quite a few levels, you've only got 2 or 3 buttons that you actually normally press. So it's a bit of a funny question, really. I think it's good combat. A lot of people who are not into RPGs, or at least RPGs of old, maybe will think it's not that great. I suppose us WoW veterans can just sort of sit in our high horse and say, kids these days, they don't know what real combat is, or something like that. Yeah, though, I think WoW's combat's awesome, so that's my personal opinion on that. Now, next, we've got a pretty interesting question from Antoine Burs Hansen, who said, do you think that they will ever add Time Walker functionality to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms, similar to the Time Walker stuff that we've got in the Blasted Lands and Dustwallow Marsh? If you're not aware, by the way, you can go to Theramore and Dustwallow Marsh, talk to a Time Walker NPC, and they will switch it back to its pre-Mists of Pandaria state, which is pretty cool because, of course, Theramore got a bit nuked. And with the Blasted Lands, if you don't want to see Netherguard being destroyed and all that stuff, you can flip it back to the pre-Warlords of Draenor version. Now, will they do that to the Vale of Eternal Blossoms? Probably not. I think it would be cool, but I think this does beg a sort of a wider point and question. Now, this is purely a hypothetical. I do not think under any circumstances this would at all make it into the game, but if you'll just humor me for a second, a part of me would really like to be able to flip the old world back to vanilla. Now, would that break quest balance? Probably. Would it be weird? Yes. Would it make not that much sense from trying to make a cohesive world? Yes. But you know what? If there was even a toy item that would just let you see an older phase of the world, wouldn't that be so awesome? I mean, come on, I would absolutely love that. Though, of course, for technical reasons, I think it's very unlikely that that would happen. I mean, for starters, if they were going to have 2 different phases of the entire of the old world, server side, they would probably have to be storing a lot more stuff there. I can imagine a slew of technical problems, and essentially it would never work. But I just wanted to take a second to indulge in the idea because, you know, it would be nice to see that stuff again. It has been a while. Cataclysm came out, what, December 2010? It's now 2015, so it's been like, you know, 4 years and a few months since we've actually got to see the old world, which is kind of weird actually if you think that that was 4 years ago and WoW's only just had its 10-year anniversary. Yeah, this game's been going for a while, but essentially the main reason why I'd like to see that stuff again is purely nostalgia, plus I think the Cataclysm did, well, add a lot to the zones in terms of the quest flow and, you know, bits of, I think, story that tied into the Cataclysm expansion, but, you know, it did take stuff away as well. A lot of that old feel, that kind of, obviously the nostalgia's gone, but there was I think a different feel to the original World of Warcraft world, rather than just being, you know, ravaged by the Cataclysm and trying to get back together. The older world, I think, felt quite a bit different. Every zone generally had a very different story. You didn't have any continuing Twilight's Hammer stuff, etc. going throughout all of them, and I think that uniqueness was sometimes really nice, and plus, it was definitely a lot more peaceful in terms of the world. It was just very different, I suppose, and maybe some people prefer that difference and some won't. As I said, though, the Cataclysm questing improvements were totally needed, and this isn't me passing commentary on any of that stuff. I just think it would be really cool to see the old world again. Really, the only way of doing that is probably by hopping onto a private server, which I suppose technically I don't condone, else I piss off Blizzard. Not that I really care about that, so whatever, you're free to do what you want, you're responsible people. Though one thing, you know, RuneScape successfully launched RuneScape 2007 all over again, and I know that, you know, the Blizzard devs have completely just taken the piss and debunked the idea of a vanilla server. But, you know what? I think I'd probably play it just to see what the crack was like. I think that would be pretty cool. If they really wanted to make some extra money from it and, you know, charge an extra $5 a month for access to that, you know what? Fine, do it. I'll pay. I'm sure a million other people will pay. Whatever. Yeah. Okay, real talk, though. The last, like, 5 minutes of this video, not realistic, never going to happen. One final thing, though, is I do like some of the old world music a bit more than the Cataclysm stuff. I think the Cataclysm stuff is often better in terms of, like, you just sitting down and listening to it as a piece of music. But in terms of the ambience of the world, I think some of the old music actually was a bit more fitting to some of the zones. So I wouldn't mind some way to be able to play that stuff again. Though, of course, that is done via add-ons, I believe, at this stage. I forget the name of it, but there is a role-playing add-on which does that with music, so maybe that's worth checking out. But anyway, that is pretty much it for today's Q&A. I will try to put in some more lore-related questions in the next Q&A to sort of balance things out. So, of course, if you got any questions, leave them down in the comments. I know I keep on pushing that, but I'm kind of low on questions, and having a big pool of interesting things to talk about is always a really nice position to be in. But anyway, that is it for me. Thank you very much for watching the video, and I'll see you next time.